Men are not punished for their sins, but by them. A quote by Ken Hubbard. We have all heard the saying, what goes around, comes around. Karma is something that everyone is aware of. It's depicted in movies, TV, and every other form of entertainment. An example of this would be the Roadrunner and the Coyote, a cartoon created in 1949 by the creators of Looney Tunes. But in this story, the moral of the story is mainly karma. The story is simple. A coyote is hungry, and his only mission is to catch the Roadrunner so he can feast. But no matter how hard he chased him, the Roadrunner always seemed to get away, and his plans would always fail. The Roadrunner was swift, fast, and always sported a smile, even when in harm's way. But on the other hand, the Coyote was relentless, conniving. His only goal was to eat the Roadrunner. He would often purchase items to aid him in the catch, only to have them work against him. It's a perfect example of how things can backfire. In real life, karma may not come as fast as it did for the coyote, but in due time, it will creep up. The only question is, when it does, will it be good or bad? September 26th, year 2000. The world would make way for Alaysia Hart. She would enter this world at St. Charles Hospital, located in New York, to parents Robert Hart Jr. and Jessica Tyre. Although she was born in New York, she would later transition to Cape Coral, Florida, where she would have her upbringing. Cape Coral is known as a place to raise a family, with nice scenery, over 400 miles of canals, and some even refer to it as the waterfront wonderland. With the city hosting 13 beaches, marine life attractions, and also beautiful scenery, it's been dubbed the Venice of America. Cape Coral would be the place that molded Alaysia into the person she became. Early on in life, she's described as someone who was nice, someone who was giving. Like most children her age, she enjoyed singing, dancing, and playing dress up. As Alaysia grew older, her kindness grew as well. She was someone who put others before herself. With her beautiful personality and infectious smile, others tended to gravitate towards her. She was someone you could call a true friend. She would spend her teenage years at Island Coast High School before ultimately graduating in the year of 2018. Upon graduating, Alaysia had a dream of becoming a nurse, once again wanting to put others before herself, as well as being a person who would help in your time of need. By the beginning of 2021, Alaysia would be 20 years old. She's grown into her own. She loved to travel. She enjoyed cooking, and at this current time, she had also found her soulmate. She was engaged to be married. At this point in time, everything seems okay for Alaysia. However, in February, things would take a drastic turn. February 21st, 2021. 20-year-old Alaysia Hart, her fiance, and two other people would be visiting Pompano Beach, Florida. The point of this trip was to simply enjoy their time. They would spend the night out on the town and enjoy each other's company. Now, it isn't clear exactly where it happened, but at some point in that night, they got in an argument with someone else. After a heated exchange, the person they were arguing with would draw a firearm. They then proceeded to fire shots and then leave the scene. Shortly after 5 a.m., the paramedics and authorities would arrive on the scene. Upon arriving, the authorities would discover two victims with gunshot wounds. The first victim would be transported to a nearby hospital, and they would survive. However, the other victim wasn't so lucky. They would be found deceased next to a gas pump. Approximately 1 mile away from the scene at the gas station, they would find a third gunshot wound victim. That victim would also be transported to the hospital and survive the altercation. When the smoke cleared, the authorities would later identify the victim by the gas pump as 20-year-old Alaysia Hart, the only victim in this tragedy to lose her life.
A shooting in Pompano Beach left one person dead, 2 others injured. The gunfire broke out just after 5 o'clock this morning. Local 10 spotted shell casings and fuzzy slippers in the middle of the street at South Dixie Highway and Southwest 8th Street. It appears the shooting victims drove themselves to Exxon in a blue Ford Flex for help. Deputies saturated the gas station at South Dixie Highway and Southwest 3rd Street, where a yellow tarp covered one of the victims' bodies. The 2 shooting victims who survived were transported to the hospital. Homicide detectives, crime scene units, and the medical examiner's office all came to the scene. BSO has not said what led to the shooting or commented on a possible motive. The search is on for the killer.
The authorities now have a homicide victim, and the next step is to find the perpetrator. But in the first couple of days, they weren't given any answers, not to the media, nor to the family. They were simply left in the dark about what happened to their loved one. And with little information to go on, the family would turn to the media in hopes for a better outcome.
And I'm so sad that she's gone.
Alaysia Hart was 20 years old.
I feel like I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and she's gonna be here, but I know she's not. She was here visiting, just coming to Miami to have fun.
Jessica Tyree says her daughter was visiting South Florida from Cape Coral and was with her fiance when she was shot.
A very close friend of hers that was supposed to see her the following day told me that she was gonna go to a club.
BSO has yet to make an arrest.
We just need witnesses.
This mother now burying her firstborn.
I just want to know why. I just want to know who.
She wants justice.
Please just tell the truth so I can set my baby free.
During the course of the investigation, the authorities didn't release much. Aside from Alaysia Hart, they didn't release the names of the other victims. After being treated at the local hospital, one of their surviving victims would have an interview with the authorities. But when being interviewed, this person told the police they didn't see anything. This person claims that they were merely looking out of the window in the opposite direction, and they can't identify the person who fired the shots. This female would in fact be the last person to see Alaysia Hart alive. With these circumstances, it began to lead people to believe maybe she knew more than she was telling, or maybe it was purely out of fear of retaliation. But there's also a possibility she was just traumatized. At that moment in time, it was just another question piled on top of the question of why this happened. Days into the investigation, the authorities would have a suspect, but they didn't release his name. They merely said he was wanted for questioning. Once again, adding more mystery to the story. We have 20-year-old Alaysia Hart losing her life at the gas station. Alongside of her, they found a gunshot wound victim. And then about a mile away, they found the third victim. But they never said how this person ended up a mile away. But my best educated guess would be that that victim fled the scene. At this point in time, you can only imagine the frustration that Alaysia's family is going through. They have a deceased loved one, but they literally don't have any answers outside of there being an argument. They would frequently call the authorities in hopes for an update, but they were stringing them along. They wouldn't even tell them the name of the suspect. But just as they say, all things done in the dark will come to the light. Well, the suspect would be forced into the light, not because the authorities wanted to release his information, but because something would happen to the suspect. The suspect in question was 35-year-old Anthony Eason. And on July 4th of 2021, Anthony Eason would be struck by a bullet. He would then be transported to the hospital. He would remain in the hospital approximately 17 days before succumbing to his injury. Now that the suspect in the shooting case of Alaysia Hart is deceased, they finally decide to release his name, and they tell the family that the person who harmed your daughter is no longer here. But that's all they tell them. The families had questions of whether or not the case was closed, but they wouldn't give the family a yes or a no. They were simply left in the dark. The saddest part about this situation is the authorities having the audacity to leave a grieving family completely in the dark, not knowing whether or not the case was still active or closed. And to add insult to injury, the authorities would speak to the media, and during this interview, they would tell the media that the case was in fact closed, meaning the family had to find out via news, and not by the people who were sworn to investigate her case. Now that the suspect is deceased, there's no more reason to move forward with the investigation. So they closed the case and left the family with nothing but questions. But that's not where this story ends, because 35-year-old Anthony Eason was actually the uncle of the fiance of Alaysia Hart. As I mentioned earlier, Alaysia, her fiance, and two other people accompanied her to Pompano Beach. One of the passengers was in fact Anthony Eason, and when this altercation went down, the only person in the vehicle who wasn't harmed just so happened to be his nephew, Alaysia Hart's fiance. And with Alaysia Hart's death being shrouded in mystery, it leaves the question if justice was truly served. Men are not punished for their sins, but by them.
A family still grieving the loss of a young woman who was shot and killed a year ago in Pompano Beach, and the man police say is responsible will never be charged.
We have all heard the saying, what goes around comes around. Karma is something that everyone is aware of.
Nicole, today marks 16 months since this murder, and tonight we're hearing from the victim's grandmother, who tells me she is distraught as we're learning this murder case is closed without an arrest.
I have cried every day for 16 months. I wake up, I see her pictures, I look at her every day, and I'm like, Alaysia, what happened?
Zoraida Rosado may never know exactly what happened, and now we know she may never get the justice she wants.
My granddaughter gets killed, and the one person that didn't get shot is walking free.
For the first time, 60 months after the murder, we are seeing the final report on the case obtained by Local 10 News. It details how detectives did not go after Alaysia's fiance, the only person not shot the day of the tragedy. Instead, they focused on his uncle, identified in the report as Anthony Eason, who was one of the people in the vehicle. The report says ballistics and DNA evidence show he fired the gun. And it says officers did have an arrest warrant for Eason, charging him with the young woman's death. But BSO says before deputies could get to Eason, he was involved in a separate incident where he was shot and killed.
There's no justice, there's no closure.
The Roadrunner was swift, fast, and always sported a smile, even when in harm's way. But on the other hand, the Coyote was relentless, conniving. His only goal was to eat the Roadrunner. In real life, karma may not come as fast as it did for the Coyote, But in due time, it will creep up. The only question is, when it does, will it be good or bad?
Sometimes things happen beyond your control, as if they have a life of their own. The choices you make, what appears to be right, seems you just have no say. As if you're a witness to your own mistakes, it's easy to play along. After you see what the choices came to be, like a storm that's passed on. Oh, the brain down the drain. Oh, the fuse, the abuse. Oh, please, storm-felled trees. Oh, the fight over who's right. Trying to remember all the shit that went down. I don't know what your intention was. Like trying to memorize the Bible backwards to the start and reciting it from the heart, upside down. Oh, please, on your knees, amend what you defend. I'm right before I fight. You're wrong, this fight is lifelong. See the water flowing under bridges. Time, my friend, has come to pay its dues, show its use. See the sheep, they're grazing on the ridges. Our friend the wolf has come to show a new beginning needs an end. Away with your say.
What happened to 20-year-old Alaysia Hart was completely senseless. My heart truly goes out to her family. It's a sad situation and totally heartbreaking. Rest in peace, Alaysia Hart. Thank you for being a light for others.